I don't know. I don't really care whether it was or it was not.
The Dragon Bunker was no more and had been reduced to a pile of rubble. This holy site had been destroyed. The Dragon Bunker had fallen. This is clearly one of the worst things to ever happen in Germany. Also, after Dragonlord had left and the Dragon Bunker was demolished, the official Facebook page for his village uploaded this as their page banner. I don't know why I love this image so much. It gets funnier the longer you look at it. And also, allegedly, the villagers even planned to throw a party to celebrate the fact that they had finally got rid of Dragonlord. So, Dragonlord was now homeless and living in his Ford Ranger, which he continued to do his live streams from, just driving around Germany and having a grand old time. Since, even though his location got shared a lot, he was usually long gone by the time the trolls got there. So, things seemed all rosy and lovely. However, Dragonlord's charges were still looming over him. And soon, he was back in court again for his appeal. Now, his previous time in court was a little bit crazy, but this time was an absolute shit show. Rainer turns up to court again, still not appropriately dressed, but at least it's better than an old ripped Slipknot t-shirt. And the point of this trial was his appeal. So Rainer's lawyers were trying to get him out of jail time, while the prosecutors wanted to increase Rainer's sentence from 2 years to 2 years and 3 months. And it wasn't just Rainer who turned up. Outside the court, there were a lot of haters who all brought a lot of alcohol and essentially started a street party outside the courthouse. In their attempts to get Dragonlord a longer sentence, the prosecution had called further witnesses to the trial, and their main witness was someone who had been present at a pilgrimage
What did this guy even stream?
Dragonlord allegedly assaulted him. And while the man was giving his testimony, the judge noticed that the man seemed a little bit wavy, and he was slurring his words a little bit. It's because he was drunk.
And Minecraft.
Because right before he went into the courthouse, he chugged almost an entire bottle of what seems to be peppermint schnapps as a dare. After the witness had given his evidence, he went back outside the courthouse and started shouting, swearing, and causing a bit of a disturbance. So the police asked him to leave, and he refused. So he was arrested. The key witness in the appeal gave his testimony drunk and then was arrested for being drunk and disorderly outside the trial. So later that evening, the judge
witness for who? Witness for prosecution or for Dragonlord? For prosecution, yeah.
Ruling. 1 year of probation, no prison. So, even though Rainer was finally handed a prison sentence, he managed to appeal his way out of it. However, the probation came with some conditions. Rainer had to pay €3,000 to a children's charity, he had to go to psychotherapy, he has to report his location to the police, and he had to contact some sort of charity group that deal with online bullying. The prosecutors then lodged something called a revision, which, putting it very basically, is like a further appeal, because they really wanted Dragonlord in prison. But in March of this year, they withdrew their revision, meaning Dragonlord's sentence was now final. 1 year of probation plus all of the other things I mentioned earlier, no prison time. So Dragonlord continues travelling Germany in his truck and streaming while he does it. And people are still playing the game of tracking him down, which they successfully did a few times. However, Dragonlord was then told by the government that he had to do an MPU. An MPU is like a second, way more advanced driver's test that some people have to do if the government suspects you are not healthy enough to be driving on the road. For example, very old people or people diagnosed with disabilities are usually asked to do an MPU. An MPU involves talking to a psychologist, drug tests, physical capability tests, vision tests, motor skills, things like that. And if you fail your MPU, then the state can revoke your license. But the state can also revoke your license if you don't turn up for your MPU. Dragonlord did not turn up for his MPU. So, the state revoked his license. So since Dragonlord did not have a driver's license, his truck that he was pretty much living in was impounded. So Dragonlord had lost his place to sleep and his mode of transport. Since he couldn't legally drive his truck, he had to sell it and use the money to stay in motels. But he ended up getting blacklisted by the motel chain Motel 1. And he was blacklisted because he's Dragonlord. And they didn't want haters turning up to their motels to fuck with him. Allegedly, now this has not been confirmed, Reiner managed to use some of the money from the car sale to buy a really cheap house, and that is where he is currently living and streaming from. I was fine to talk about the Dragon Bunker because Reiner gave that one out himself and everyone in Germany knew where it was, but this location I'm not going to talk about and just move on. But now we get into the latest happenings with Dragonlord. Now, please be aware that as of right now, a lot of this stuff is just allegations or rumours, because you know how the internet is. And a lot of the details are not 100% clear, so everything I'm about to say should be taken with a huge pinch of salt. But first, let's talk a little bit about the background that built up to Dragonlord's current situation. A while ago, Dragonlord allegedly started a porn blog. It was a blog where he would write sexual, erotic stories. And it wasn't even a private one, it was like a public blog that anyone could go on. He even used his real Dragonlord username and everything. The blog became a bit of a meme with all the haters who would all make fun of how badly written all the stories were and how Dragonlord would self-insert himself into all of the stories as some Chad McShagger. Around this time, he also made a porn forum which he also used his Dragonlord name on. Allegedly, he posted advertisements for sex and stuff like that on it, and some people are theorising that he made this forum as a sort of dating website or something like that. Haters spent a lot of time just laughing at the stories on his porn blog. Apparently, Dragonlord wrote some fictional stories, but then wrote others presenting them as things he actually did when they were just clearly made up. There was also another story he had written based on Primi Nocta. You know, that old law where the Lord gets to sleep with any bride on her first night of marriage, you know, we've all seen Braveheart, basically that. And this story was technically a rape story. Now, why am I telling you about that? Well, we can get into that in a minute. It turns out that sometime later, Dragonlord's new house was raided and all of his electronic devices were seized. Now, that part we do know for a fact. It was reported in the press, and Dragonlord even confirmed it himself in streams. So speculations started to run.
So the issue is the one goose made its nest, and the other goose is just a giant dick. Our job boxes are over there, and we have to repeatedly go out this door probably 30 or 40 times a day. So you chose a horrible spot for a house.